Hey everyone, this is Rob Ryder. It's May 18th, 2013. And lots has happened this last week. I can't hardly keep up. So I'm going to just go through a bunch of notes I've taken, different things, stories I've heard and so forth, and the forums that were involved, and maybe what it means. But to me it means they fear us. And we're going to find out next week. Everything is peaceful. Everything's easy. It's just when you go ask certain questions, it's not so much anger. You start to see fear. So, anyways, I sent some of this out on an email earlier. I'll just read it. It makes it easier for me. So, today, here's one story. A brother went down to the post office and he asked about lost mail. But, actually, so before he asked her, there was a man pushing lots of mail in carts. So he asked him, where is that place where lost mail goes which is intended not for legal name? And the guy in the mail smiled and said, oh, for the real name. And he sent him in line to where the lady was. Well, when you get in line with a lady, they're going to give you the 800 number they want you to call, and basically you're calling the postmaster or post office inspectors. A number of us have put complaints into the post office inspectors pointing out mail fraud because they're sending things in a fictitious name because they send it to your all capital letter name. Then, according to 18 USC 1342, that's a crime. So we pointed it out, but I don't know anybody yet that's heard from the postal inspectors. It doesn't change the fact that this postman knows that there's mail that's going to a real name that's going out the door as lost mail. And so a lot of what we're doing is because of that, because the post office gets your address in the county. At least that's what my postman said. Well, he certainly has it for the business, all caps Robert Allen Rytlewski, but they don't have it for the owner, which is your true name. That's how they want you to put it on their forms, which would be Rytlewski, Robert Allen. So since I don't have it recorded with the county, they can't give the address to the post office, and if mail was to come, they wouldn't know where to send it. There is no address on file for Rytlewski, Robert Allen. What this means is when they go to do an action against you in court, they're supposed to go and do their due diligence to see who the owners are and make sure that they're notified. We're not getting notified. It's because when the attorney goes online under Rytlewski Robert Allen Rytlewski, what they have the address for, the business, there's no registered owner. So you just became an unknown owner. So what we're trying to do is to do these doing business as or trade name registrations or whatever your state has that allows you to put your all capital letter name and the address, and you can use the address they're sending the mail to right now because that is the business address they have for them, and then tie it to the true name being the owner, which is Rytlewski, Robert Allen, and have a certificate from the state saying the two aren't the same. One's a corporation, the other one's the owner, and you don't have their silent acquiescence. You have their explicit consent, certified consent. So what can you do with it? Well, so here's this was Joe in Arizona sent me this. So here in the state of Arizona, we have a book and trade names, fictitious name, simple statute, $10, register, additional $25, fictitious name certificate, 48 hours. It's done through the Secretary of State. That is one way to do it. But when you go and read the statutes, it says you have to have put this other certificate in, and also we'll cover that later. But you can do this through the Secretary of State. You're supposed to be able to. So this all started on Monday. He went with three others with the statutes, codes, the SOS Trade Handbook Guide. So if you go to the Secretary of State's website in Arizona, you'll find a Trade Handbook Guide. I don't need to send it to you. Google it. Found right at his site. I go to the Tucson, Arizona office and was rejected before even getting approved for the name. So I pushed further to get answers and was told by the department supervisor she can't accept it due to the name, right, due to all caps. So I confidently asked her what procedure code statute she's filing. She said, let me ask someone else. Moments later, she says I need to refile with corrections without marking the box other for the owner's entity status, where I filled in under other instead of individual private living man. I haven't looked at this form, right? But one thing you could do is if it has a section, if it has a place to check for sole proprietor, that's what you are. You're the rightful proprietor. So you could always put rightful proprietor. I haven't looked at the form to see if it had that on there. But anyways, he was just checking a box other and wanted to do what he wanted to do. So it was after business hours. I left, filled out the application with corrections, and Tuesday morning, same shit before. Guess what? They're still playing the game. But this time she said the department manager would accept the trade name application, but not payment under advertisement of the department under advisement of the department manager. So now they'll give him the receipt or give him the certificate, but they won't take his money. So he told her the procedure, statute and procedure both say to pay, and she said she can't take payment. So anyway, I was told she would let me know by Monday if it were approved. Then I told her I needed a signed statement as to why she won't accept payment, and she did. She must have gave him a statement. Okay, so now I'm up till Wednesday, no call, nothing. So I call and hammer the trade name supervisor, who after I read her the law and procedure, she breaks down and tells me it's an internal office procedure. It's an internal office procedure not to accept birth trade names in the name of the birth account. It's an internal office procedure. That's not a law, right? That's custom. It gets even better. So I asked her, what procedure is that? So she ho-hummed around and said, it's an internal verbal office procedure. So they're not allowing you to claim as a trade name your birth name because it's just their internal verbal office procedure. So I laughed and said, I think the AG is getting a complaint for impersonating an officer and a lawmaker. And see, she said she will have the manager answer for this. She is only following orders. So I've written a letter, signed, dated, checked, accepted, without payment, and a copy of the application stamped SOS received. So he did put the application in, right? He doesn't have a certificate, but he does have something from them that said he had done this. I had court today. Can't remember if this is Wednesday or Thursday. So I took the paperwork with me and let the judge try to con me, and then I hit him with, I'm the owner of the business, and where is the contract? Once you get the separation that all caps is a business, right? Well, for your business to have a debt to another business, you've had to have a contract with that business. A bilateral contract signed by both parties. Otherwise, how could I have a debt with another business? So that's a perfect thing to say. I'm the owner of that business, and where's the contract? That's what a guy said in court, right? He didn't bring in 50 pounds of paper. He told him, I'm the owner of the business, and where is the contract? He, the judge, winked and said, I know too much, and I'm going to recuse. I think he means I know too much, as in Joe knows too much, and said, I'm going to recuse myself and place this business on a stay. Place this business on a stay. He filled out a sheet. I asked him for a copy. He said, no, it needs to be mailed. It's business. Next week he'll give us more answers, but I'm working on the next step. I know in the handbook you have direct access to common law that leads me to believe all past paperwork, pleas of the Crown, judgments, deeds, and if fictitious name certificate is recorded in the county, you will see it go in effect, same as with the canon courts. And I couldn't agree more. All these things with pleas and the crowns and all these other things that we've done where we've properly put the paperwork in to bring in a complaint will take effect. What they're doing now is they're saying because you haven't done this fictitious name registration, you're barred access to the state courts. And that's the only reason. you can't maintain a suit about a contract issue. Right? It just says it in the law when you go read it. I'm not going to argue with it. Let's go fix it. Let's go register. You're registering your business, right? Not you, your business, and you're saying I'm the owner. And now presumptive evidence in all courts of law is you are the owner because it's been recorded in the proper offices. So it could be it needs to be in the city, county, state, federal. Maybe you got to do one in each one. As we'll see, they got all sorts of different forms and stuff, and there may be a little bit more to it than meets the eye, but the main thing is when you go in and tell the judge, here's my certificate and I'm the owner of the business, where's the contract? Boom. He's going to recuse himself. So now if they recuse himself and this case doesn't go any further, the next thing is to say it was a malicious prosecution and you want to file a criminal complaint against the plaintiff and let a court of justice handle it from there. We want to get it so we can just go put in complaints, sworn complaints, pointing out the facts, taken to the trier of the facts, let him determine what the outcome is. And instead of them chasing us, we're going to chase them. Because when you do this, if you get somebody in a malicious prosecution, they may get 30 days and get time off, who knows, but they're going to lose their bar card. They can't be an attorney anymore. They have a criminal offense against them. And you just need one. Pop. There's another one gone. Pop, pop, pop. You watch when you start popping the bubbles, and you tell me if they don't fear us. I have seen how we need to trademark the name. Also, you are all... I forget that. Yeah. I'm just doing my thing, Joe. And so are you, and thank you very much. Outstanding. See, they're just using custom, right? They're saying it's a verbal internal custom. Well, that isn't what the law is, so we're going to make them follow the law. So you're going to tell me you're going to compound the fraud by not following the law. If you're following orders, it's no defense when orders are unlawful, right? It didn't work in Nuremberg. It ain't going to work now. This whole system is really set up like the military. And again, in the military, if you put in a complaint against a general and you're correct, that general's gone. One of the quickest ways to get gone in the military is not follow procedures. They always can hold it over your head. Right? You're going to go out and John Wayne it on your own, and somebody makes a complaint, well, they're going to hang you on it. It's just the way it works. Okay, so Bob in Arizona had a similar experience. They would not let him register as all caps as a DBA without adding a modifier. When he went to the Secretary of State, they wanted to have like your all caps, comma, estate, or all caps, comma, something, a descriptive word, to make it other than your birth name, which is really all caps, Robert Allen Rytlewski is what I want to claim as the business, period. And then, so Bob called me, he's down there, so shit, Bob, I don't know what to do. I guess put comma estate as the descriptive word. And then when he got a certificate, he noticed later they had still spelled his name wrong. All this shit was done on purpose, right? Now the thing is, they're the ones not following the law. We're trying to follow the law, and they're not. And if we need to put a complaint in, now we have the evidence. And, we can talk about where to send the complaint, but I'm going to say it's the chief judge of the county based on what the county clerk told Roe, that the chief judge of the county has jurisdiction over all property in the county. So we want the chief judge to know we're the owner. Okay, what else happened? So Bob in Florida. Okay, so anyways, back to Bob in Arizona. So then he had found where you can do this other, there's this other one you're supposed to do in the county, and that's what we're attempting now. We'll get into more of that here in a little bit. But so we have found that there's one in the county. There's also one in the state. There could be one in the federal government, right? You want to claim your name as a doing business as a trade name, either or, both. Because once you have a registered trade name with the federal government, that's your Pepsi Cola, man. Nobody can take your trade name. It's your coat of arms. That is your coat of arms. It's your armorial bearings. Your name's been trademarked. . 'Cause Because right now people are assuming to be you. In fact, if you think about it and talk to enough people, right, look at all the different ways they send you paper. Robert A. Rytlewski, Robert A. Rytlewski, Robert A. Rytlewski with Rytlewski spelled incorrectly. All sorts of things, right? R. Rytlewski. All these are fictitious names, and these are accounts that have been set up to doing business as, and now they have this account set up, but they haven't registered that account either. Yeah, it's even on a Saturday it rings. So they've set this account up, and by reference somehow, by file number, by whatever, it's all tied to your initial all caps, which is what's on your birth document. And so I've been asked, well, do I do the one on the court case, or what do I use? Go back to the original, right? The whole idea of this is you go back to the beginning, you point out their error early, and you see their last. Thank you, Lord Coke, right? Go to the root, quit poking at the leaves. We're out here dealing with the symptoms. Let's say you're in a foreclosure, right? Well, that's really just a symptom of the problem that you haven't claimed your frickin' name, and so somebody else is putting a claim in against your property. So, other stories share coming soon. Okay, well, I got a few. Right? So really, you don't need to talk to these people who have done this. You need to go talk to them, right? And so the idea is we're going to get comfortable with going and talk to them. We may even go in with a form already done and a complaint already done and say, you don't do this now. I'm putting this complaint in with the chief judge. Okay? So what chief judge? Well, chief judge of the county, chief judge of the appeals court, chief judge of the Supreme Court, your state, chief judge of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Because they have original jurisdictional law and equity. So let's take it to the justices as a complaint sworn under oath that we tried to do the right thing. Here's the law we're following. Yada, yada, yada. And these administrators that are administrating they're all clerks, man. They're not following their rules, right? Well, we can have a judicial review on their decisions. Right? Get them to answer for the usurpation of a public office. You can say, look, I don't even believe that you have the proper oath and bond filed to hold this office. Right? Are you usurping an office? Are you going to compound the fraud, or are you going to follow the law? If they come back and say, well, that's not the way we do it, say, so you're just compounding the fraud. Is that your testimony, that you're going to compound the fraud? Because I am going to put this complaint in and put the complaint on the table unless I get this done now. It's up to you. I don't know if they're going to be able to hold their bladder. Okay, so somebody in North Carolina found out. You go to the Department of Commerce, download the form, fill it out, get it notarized, file it, register deeds, $26. Yep, pretty simple. And he's asking about getting the property back. Well, that's the whole idea, right? In my opinion, now that you have the certificate, if you're in your birth county, go to wherever the birth records were and say, I'd like to have my property, please. I have a court order. The state's already agreed it's my property. I'm the owner. And we want to get that damn envelope that's sealed sitting on a shelf someplace. Then inside it has, all the secrets about you that you haven't been told. Whatever it is. However this works, right? It's in an envelope sitting on a shelf since the day you were born, because one of the things we found in Arizona was if a child is adopted, and it says the word child, and on my birth document it calls my all capital letter name, child, right? So if a child's adopted, it can be given an assumed name or a fictitious name to be used in all court proceedings. And the true name will be put into a sealed envelope, and it'll take a court order to open it. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the court order. I say you got one. Say, I already got an order from the court that it's my property. If you're not going to give me my property, I'm going to have to go file a complaint. That's what it's going to come down to, right? Walking up and saying, it's my property. Either give it to me, I'm filing a complaint. And go file a complaint. So, what Patrick in Arizona found out, this is very interesting, right? When you look at who can do an acknowledgement or take an oath or all these other things, it's everybody from a judge down to a notary. So Patrick wants to have a judge put it on his. Excellent. So when he went to court, he said he wanted to see a judge about having him acknowledge a document. And the clerk at the court on the first floor said, well, you can't do that. That'd be an ex parte hearing. Other people, I'm sure, have heard those words before. Well, he just said, I'm going to go ask somebody else. Went upstairs. And I'm not really sure who he asked, but he talked to another office about having a judge acknowledge his instrument, like it says you can do in the, quoting the law, showing the law, and Arizona says you can do it. And he says, I was downstairs. I said, I can't see the judge. That would be an ex parte hearing. And the lady said, I wish I would quit saying that. That really isn't true. You can see the judge. You just need to have a written request. Right? And then he can decide if he's going to do it or not. But if you want to see the judge, just put in a written request. I'm very sure that these judges have ex parte hearings with attorneys all the time. And that's really all we're talking about. It's a hearing that doesn't require any notice to the other side. And it's about property. And we're going to say it's our property. So you can get a judge. You can get in to see the judge. You just need to put in a request. That's a big thing about that. So what are we going to ask him? Well, we're going to ask him to do a property hearing based on our certificate saying that we're the owner. That's another thing we could do with this thing. Right? You can go down and take it to, if you're in your birth county, just to see what they do, go to the clerk's office first, see if they give them to you. If not, head to the chief judge's office and give them a complaint. Say you want a property hearing to determine the rights, title, and interest because the clerk won't give you your property. And Bob in Arizona, he was at family court, and they said they could witness an instrument. So he said, well, can I see what the seal looks like? And they wouldn't show it to him. I don't know what that's all about, but he'll find out next week when he has his document ready to go take in. George in Oregon, he was helping his brother with a complaint in Mississippi. They took the complaint, so his brother, this is his biological brother, took the complaint to the Chancery Court. I guess they have that in Mississippi. The clerk entered it into a book. Could that be a docket book? I don't know. Put the court seal on it. Wasn't really sure what he should do next, except maybe take it to the trial court. And I say trial court because it's called a circuit court here, and he used the word, but I don't remember if it's a circuit court. Superior court, whatever it is. And he entered it into his case, along with a completed DBA that he had done. So then he took his complaint, he dropped it off the chief judge of the county, not the county clerk, the court clerk, to the chief clerk of the court, for whatever that court is. And then George calls me and he says, well, what else can you think of? And I just talked to Bob in Massachusetts, who had been down to his court talking about a complaint he put in. And so I said, well, you may want to take it to the police station, because it looks like the proper thing to do is you go to the police station first. And from what Bob found out in Massachusetts, and then you're supposed to take that back to the court, and they have you fill out some other paperwork. So he took it to the police station, and they looked at what he had, and he said, look, maybe I should have started here first, right? But I've already done this. Do I need to come to the police and put this in? They said, you already had the big court seal on it. All right? So we're the tiny court. Whatever any of that means. But so what he did in Mississippi to put a complaint in, now this was a complaint about a criminal charge based on the fact that there's no sworn complaint against him, that they're simulating a legal process upon which only a willfully false judgment based on perjury of witnesses could be rendered against him. And by the way, that's my property. I claim it. Well, that's what's on his complaint, and it's got the big court seal on it. Cool. in Bob, Massachusetts. He checked on the complaint filed a month ago, and this is when he went. So he went to the Superior Court in Massachusetts, where he had filed a criminal complaint about a month ago, based on his foreclosure, I believe it was. He's got 2, 3 things going, so I can't always keep them in my head. But yeah, I think it was based on his foreclosure. Same thing. They're trying to enforce a unilateral contract. Yada 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 yada. Okay. Well, the clerk there said, well, what you're supposed to do is you take your complaint to the police station, and the police give you something, whatever the something is, and you're supposed to bring that back to the court, and the court has you fill out some other paperwork, a couple of forms. And Bob wanted to see him, and she wouldn't show him the forms. I don't know why, but he'll go find out. And the thing about going to the police, it very well could be the proper thing to do, because the chief of police, now I don't know that we go to the desk. This is the thing, right? The chief of police in most cities is going to have the powers of a justice of the peace, ex officio. Just ask him. Are you ex officio a justice of the peace? Yes or no? If he says no, who is? Right? The mayor should be one. There are certain people in the city that are just ex officio a justice of the peace or a conservator of the peace or whatever, but they have the powers of a justice of the peace, and they're supposed to maintain the peace, and somebody's frickin' disturbed your peace. Right? They keep sending this paperwork after you against a fictitious entity and then trying to say it's you, right? Well, that's disturbing my peace. So you go put your complaint in, and whatever you would get from then you take back to the circuit court, the big court, the trial court, to the clerk, and they said, and then there's got more things for you to fill out here. So, and he also did the DBA in his town, and he does have a file number in his, and we're going to see that's very important. Got to have a file number. Upon further review, new info, and looking at annotated laws, very important to look at the annotated laws. This video is probably going to be a couple of parter, and we'll look at some specific annotated laws, but it's where all the read between the lines stuff is. Okay, so when he looked at them, he found out that the city had altered the form. The annotated gives an example, and it says to alter the form may change its meaning. Bob in Arizona found annotated laws for Arizona. Has form in annotated laws to use. Right? So, if you go look at the annotated laws that have to do with the statutes that pertain to this, and go look at the stuff that it takes you to, sometimes it'll show you a form, sometimes it'll give you a reference. I'm going to read what Michigan says. It gives all sorts of hints about court cases. It's beautiful stuff. Okay, and then Roe, she did her DBA in the county. Deputy clerk had to go ask deputy state's attorney. Was gone for over an hour. Came back and did the forms. Tried a couple of tricks. Found out later, they tried numerous tricks, and found out later that one of them they didn't put the file number on it. So Roe went back to ask the clerk about that, and they said they can't put the file number on until you bring it back bring back the publishing affidavit. Well, the problem with that, on the publishing form that you take to the newspaper, it has a spot to put the file number on it. And as it happened Friday, Roe had gone with Brown to Chicago to do his, as the clerk sent in their information. As they're going, Roe said, when you're done, will they have a file number on it? And the lady said, oh yeah, it has to have a file number. It has to go on the publication form you take to the newspaper. And one county over, right, they didn't put it on Rose. And she went back to get it, and the deputy clerk wouldn't give it to her. Now here's an interesting thing. Roe and her husband have had numerous conversations at the clerk's counter before. And numerous times they've had to go to the state's attorney. That's what they said. And so one time her husband said, do you work for the state's attorney? And the clerk said yes. And so you think about it. If that's true, then you're not talking to the county clerks, right? You're talking to the clerks that work for the attorney. And I don't want their decision. I want it from the county clerk. So you may want to ask them deputies, do you work for the county clerk or do you work for the prosecuting attorney? A different office, right? State's attorney, they call it state's attorney in Illinois. Because you want this to go, this is business for the county clerk, not the state's attorney's office. And in the annotated laws of Michigan, it specifically says that the clerk's office cannot get a decision from the attorney's office. That it is the clerk's office decision, and it's a judicially reviewable situation if you don't like the answer you get from the clerk. But it's based on what the clerk's office said, not what the attorney says. So anyways, the clerk said, yeah, I had to have one. Well, a bit later, the shit kind of hit the fan, because just when she's getting ready to finish, she's just typing stuff in the computer. She looks and sees what they're doing. I said, well, you can't do this with these names, right? Well, sure we can. No. It didn't get heated, but as soon as Rose said, show me the law that says I can't do this, she said behind her, all of a sudden the cop that's sitting in the room, sitting in a chair, he's up kind of walking around, right? And he's hovering behind them, and, he's not bothering them. But as soon as she started to, not just do as she was told, the cop is up out of his chair. And, Rose, it doesn't bother Rose. She's just pointing out that that's what they're doing, right? So, just understand they may do that, right? And because when you say, show me the law, they're not going to want to do it. Because they're not doing it by the law. You're doing it by the law. And I think to get around this, right, that's the idea that, okay, I'll just take the complaint in with me. If you don't do it, I'm not going to argue. I'm going to go file this complaint with the chief judge that you're not following the law. What's your testimony? And that'll change the situation somewhat. And, and then listen real close to what they say. And you just keep saying, if you don't do it by this law, you're compounding a fraud. You are willfully violating a lawful order. The law says to do this, you're not doing it. I'm ordering you to do it by the law. That's a lawful order from your superior. They work for you. Okay. So, anyways, Roe left them some questions to answer, and because it was Chicago and they had to catch trains and stuff, they really didn't have time to do anymore, right? But it was good to hear that clerk say, yeah, you have to have this file number on it before you take it to the newspaper, because in Rose County they said you don't get that until you bring it back for the newspaper. So having that certificate number or whatever it is, when you go put it in the newspaper, if that's part of your process, make sure it's got the number on it. Put the certificate number on. Now when you get this affidavit back, you're supposed to take it back to the county clerk's office in Rose's case. Right? So this isn't something that you get from the newspaper and put in your pocket. It needs to go to an office someplace. And I have to think it's going to go wherever notices are. Because really it's been public notice. That could be the Register of Deeds office. I don't know where it's going to be, right? And I don't even know that that's true. What I'm saying is, do whatever it says. But if you're doing a publication, it needs to go somewhere after you get it. So Lisa and Tom in Minnesota, they went to the Secretary of State's office, did theirs. All seemed to go very well, so it was very easy. And then as they left and they had the receipt, Lisa saw something she'd never seen before. Right? And they've been involved in numerous court cases and all sorts of paper put in and all sorts of things given back, all sorts of receipts. Well, on the receipts, their names were all in all lowercase. Like, Robert Allen Redlewski. That way. Not even proper case. All lowercase. So many have asked me, why to do this? Well, to me it's real simple. You're getting the state to agree that all caps is property and you are the owner. You're not all caps. And all caps is the defendant. Well, if they're serving you, the owner, for having violated something, then the paperwork has to have you, the owner, as the defendant. If it has the property as the defendant, then that can only be a contractual issue. And somebody's saying they have a contract with you. Because in commerce, both parties have to agree, have to sign the contract. For one company to owe another company a debt, they have to have had a contract. And that's the whole idea. All caps is a business. Man, it's your Ponderosa. Again, you're Ben Cartwright. It's your Ponderosa, your landed estate. But right now, Ben's off the ranch. Right? Unknown owners, just sitting there. Somebody else going to come claim it. It's abandoned property. You know, it's just paper and accounts, but it's zeros in a computer that you haven't claimed. And in Illinois, the county clerk is the trustee of all unknown owners. Well, if they can be the trustee of all unknown owners, they could just as easily be my administrator to administer my orders. And I order you to give me my birth records. And let's get the estate cleaned up. Right? I want to see what the debt is that the estate owes, and let's get this handled, right? Set off the debt. I don't know if the county clerk can do that. Maybe it takes the chief judge, because the chief judge has jurisdiction over all property in the county. Well, go tell him to do it. So what do you do next if you have one of these certificates? Well, you take it to the county clerk, ask him for your records. State agrees, it's my property, I want my property. If you live in a different county, ask in writing for a property hearing with the chief judge of the county you're in and ask him to get the records for you. Right? If they say no to one, right? If you're in your birth county, they say no. Well, then you go ask the chief clerk to get them, the chief judge to get them for you. Right? State Supreme Court is original jurisdictional law and equity. You can always send a complaint to the chief judge. Send them what you've done and say they won't give me my property. And Attorney General may not advise county clerk whether specific proposed names should be rejected, since decision must be that of the clerk, subject to judicial review. So her decision is subject to a judicial review. If you go to the clerk and they won't let you do it, say then, I want to file for a judicial review against your decision. Give me a form. Make them go get something, right? That's the whole thing. You tell them, okay, I want to file a judicial review against your office. Please give me the appropriate form. And see how they jump. I don't know what they're going to do, right? But that's what I would do. And so, and judgment of Attorney General in a particular case, determination of which depends upon its own peculiar facts, may not be substituted for judgment of the clerk. In other words, the attorney can't speak for the clerk. It's the judgment of the clerk. That means the clerk is a judge. They have judicial power. The county clerk, right? Not the one who says, well, we actually work for the state's attorney. The county clerk. It's his job to make the decision. So don't let them clerks tell you that. Say, no, I'm leaving this for the clerk to look at. I'm leaving the paper. All right? If I don't get the answer I want, I'm filing for judicial review against your office. Please give me the form to do so. And if you can donate, please do. Rent's coming up, and I've been too busy to go do this myself. And I just need enough to get to the finish line. We're so damn close. And Ashley Rytlewski, Gmail, that is the PayPal account. That didn't do. Okay. This is off that Florida frequently asked questions thing I sent out before. It said one of the things is about this registration is banks and financial institutions may require proof of registration before engaging in any transactions. So take it down to the bank now and say, hey, I claimed the property. I'm the owner. How does that change my contract with the bank? I claim the property. I want access to my account. If you don't give it to me, I'm going to go file a complaint. See what they say. Okay, so that was the main thing on that. We got lots of other. So let me just look at some forms for a bit. Or compiled laws. So this was the compiled law that was in Arizona for certificate of name required. Any person or other partnership transacting business in the state under a fictitious name or a designation not showing the names of the owner of the business or the name of the corporation doing business shall record with the county recorder of the county which place business is located a certificate stating in full either the name of the owner of the business in his or her residence. It didn't say address, it says residence, and we'll see that that is different. Signed by the owner and acknowledged. So the one thing about these annotated laws, where was it here? Oh, it took you to a form that you could get for a certificate of fictitious name. See, it has these keys on here, right? Whenever you see a house key on a legal form, what do you think that means? Right? And then it tells you where all this information comes from, treaties on and practice aids. So, you know, this is the part you're going to read here in the statutes. That to there. Now, one of the things it says, this section does not apply to a person or corporation that has either filed a trade name certificate with the Secretary of State or obtained authorization from the Corporation Commission to conduct business as a foreign corporation using a particular name. So you can have done other things, but the thing is, right, A, B, or C, either you have to have done it in the county, you had done it in the state, the Secretary of State trade name, or if you're a foreign corporation, through the Corporate Commission, which means that any corporation doing business in your state has to have some kind of certificate saying that they can. And because of that, if you were to go and look for the plaintiff of a foreclosure by the exact name they use as the plaintiff, chances are you're not going to find a certificate for them to do business in your state. Well, guess what? They can't bring a case into the court. This is something we'll get into a little bit deeper in the next video, but it says right in the Michigan annotated laws for fictitious entities for my state, you know, it points this out that, look, if they haven't done it, they can't bring a case either. One of the reasons we're not supposed to have access to the state courts because we haven't filed a DBA. Well, when we point out they haven't filed a DBA and they don't have access to the courts either, that's just what the law says. So that was Arizona's. So this is one that Bob's working off of. What else we got here? I don't have these in any particular order. Okay, this is one for Texas, right? This is just kind of what another form of what one looks like. A little bigger. Assume name, record, certificate of ownership for unincorporated business or profession. Well, that's what you have. You have an unincorporated business. Go to Webster's and look up the definition of business. Webster's 1828. Life's main business should be to honor God and follow His commandments, according to Webster. I don't sound like it has anything to do with money. All right, so business name is your all caps. The business address is the way that they're sending the mail now to all caps. For how long? Here you can do it for 10 years. Put down 10. I'd say you're a sole proprietor. But where it says name, you're going to want to put the real name, which is Rytlewski, Robert Allen. And your signature. Residence address. Okay, and you know, so a very simple form, one-page form, right? Just make sure they do it right. Now, does this have a place for a file number? Let's see. Where do we put the file number? Form of identification presented. Okay. So this is the application, but the point is, when you walk out of there, when you read these laws that go with these things, usually within the very first paragraph it's talking about you taking something and filing it someplace. Well, if you're going to file something, there's going to be a file number created, and you want the frickin' file number off the bat, because they don't want to give you that, because that file number is going to put it into the office of the recorder, which is the court of record. right? When they go look in a file to see who the owner is, and it shows you, well, that's a game changer. It didn't used to have you in there. It used to say unknown owner. So here's one for Illinois, right? And it has this place for file number up here. And this is the one that Roe did, and they didn't put a file number in there. They said, we don't put that in until after you come back. Yeah, well. Here's the copy of legal notice that would be used, and guess what? It's got a place to put the file number. And it's supposed to be inserted by the county clerk, and so this had to be done before you went to the post or down to the newspaper. Right, so this deputy clerk is just, committed fraud. The whole office has. We're going to go put a complaint in with the chief judge. Actually, what Roe's going to do, because she has talked to the county clerk before, and we talked about this a bit, she's going to email the county clerk and tell them what's going on. So I ain't down there to talk to them. I'm down here to talk to you. And they're not going to follow the law. And if they work for you, that reflects on your office. And I'm going to have to go get a judicial review. What are you going to do about it, clerk? And put it on the clerk's shoulders, right? Go to the man who's supposed to have whoever holds the office. And it's their decision. Right? The people we may be talking to at the counter may not even work for him. Yeah, true names, right? True names. Go look at the definition. Rytlewski, Robert Allen. Okay, what else did we have here? Had a bunch of different people's forms. Okay. So here's Bob in Massachusetts. This is interesting. So Bob in Massachusetts went down and did this. Okay? And this is where we found out about the form number. Because he did it by the mail, and they mailed it right back. Right? And here's the form they mailed back to him. And what we want to look at here is, see, here's a place for seal, and that's where the notary is. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's an embossed seal right here over where whomever this is signed. Okay, but there was no file number on it. So when he pointed it out to me, I said, man, that just doesn't sound right, brother. There's a file number. It sounds like that should probably be on there. And so he called back and said, hey, my instrument doesn't have a file number on. And the clerk says, well, that's something we do every, just a couple of times a month, right? And it'd probably get done then. And, he said, well, yeah, but I came down to file it, right? It says I came down to file. I need to have a file number. I need to take this to the newspaper. I'm pretty sure it needs to have a file number. And so he called and he actually talked to the clerk. And the guy said, yeah, you do need a file number. And he made a phone call, and pretty soon Bob had a number. They gave him the number over the phone. I said, well, Bob, you can't write it in. Right, you'd be altering a public record. You're going to have to go down and have them give you another one. Right, so down he goes, right? Yeah, sounds like a right thing to do. And so they did it again. So they took the one they gave him, and they went back to the original, which is on, because they had given him a copy, a true copy, and they kept the original. And so they wrote the file number in. But look at this. As soon as they put the file number in, nothing else changed in the form except putting the file number on it. Now there's no seal on this side. Over here, right? The seal went over here. They're not just, decide, put one here, put one here, one here. No, they did it for a reason, right? Maybe all this clerk knows is if it has a file number, it goes to the left-hand bottom. If there's no file number, you put your seal on the right-hand bottom. And that would really be all that they would need to know to do this job. All I know is they went back and they redid it. They put the file number on it. Seal's on the other side. All right? Seal's over here. And Bob said he's never seen this seal before, right? This is the seal of the city, or yeah, of his town. But now the problem is that this is the town that the form is, or the form that the town is using, and it says it conforms to this right here, as amended. But he started doing a little more investigating, and what did he find here? What did it say? So this is out of the annotated laws. And it says this is the way that that certificate should look. It should say the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, town of. See, the words are written out. Chapter 110, Section 5, yada, yada, yada. Right? That's what it should look like. Now here's the interesting thing. Insert the fictitious name of the business. The number, that would be the street number, 1500 or whatever your house number is. The name of the street would be Elm Street, let's say, and then the next blank is city or town, right? City of, town of, whatever it is. And then you would put the full name. So AB is the first candidate. AB gets to be full name number one, right? So that would be Rytlewski, Robert Allen. And then it wants your residence. Well, this part where the residence came from is just this street with the two dashes on both sides pulled down. So what didn't we do? We're not going to put the house number. Your residence now is just Elm Street, whatever the town is. And here's another thing. See where it says signed right here and it has AB? Well, that means you would put signed, Rytlewski, Robert Allen, and then below it, your signature, whatever your signature is. So signed and signature are two different things, right? If somebody just puts their signature, they haven't signed it. To have it signed has to be their real name, whatever they're using. To do their, it should be their real name. Rytlewski, Robert Allen. Now, if they're a true judicial officer, they may have it a different way. I don't know, right? I'm just saying, your full name is last surname coupled with your given name and initials. And M.I. does not stand for middle initial. It does not. Go look it up. M.I. Try to find it for middle initial. Because they're going to try to put a middle initial on your form. That's what they've done with some other guys. We'll get to that in just a minute. But what else do I have here? What else did he show me? Here we go. Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Here's another one. Oh, interesting thing. See where it has this little disc right here. So this is the annotated book, hard copy book. But there's a disc that has this form on that you can go and download the form to fill the form out. And so the librarian said you can't take the book home, but you can take the disc home. So Bob was going to try to get down there and get the disc, see what other forms are on it, but you can actually get the disc, has these forms on it, probably as a PDF, and you just fill it in. So, but they had this other one. So here's one's a little bit different, right? This is that MGLA that they had on the form that they did for him, right? It didn't have the words spelled out. It had like this, I do believe. The title of, all caps, is conducted at number, whatever your house number is, Elm Street, Utopia, Massachusetts, by the following name, persons, or corporation. Full name. Now they got David Copperfield down there, right? But that isn't the full name. I do not believe that to be the full name. Because definition of a full name is Rytlewski, Robert Allen. Residence or corporate address, including city, state. Right? So, anyways, if you don't do it by this, if you alter the form, you've changed its meaning. And that was pointed out on this other form that he printed out. Selection of the proper form and its use and modification to suit individual facts and circumstances requires careful review of all language by a user. Selection of the proper form and its use, right? Proper form and its use. So this one is the one where it was all spelt out. This is the form. And it has this note on there, right? Selection of the proper form. So to me, because the ones in all has numbers instead of words, this has the numbers as words. We're going to say this is de jure. The other one is de facto. If you do this as de jure, I think you're claiming your domicile. So, no one should run out and do anything quick, but everybody should just read to see what they can do. I wanted to find what the hell did that have. Maybe I didn't save it. Okay. Now, Bob in Florida did this, and this is the certificate he got back. I certify attached a true and correct copy of application for registration of fictitious name, registered in the department, registration number. That's what we got from the Secretary of State. Okay, and it gives the registration number of this fictitious name is G13, right? So if you wanted to, right now you could go to Florida Secretary of State, put that number in, and see what Robert Dale Brownwell had done. But what they had given him, well, how do you make this bigger? On this application, as you can see, is that he had done it Brownwell Robert D. Well, that isn't how he did it. He spelled it out. They changed it. Okay, but it does have a registration number on it. All right. So Bob called him and talked to him on the phone about it. They said, well, you're going to have to send us an email with this problem. Because he said, look, that isn't how I filled it out. Right, that's a public record. You've altered my public record. And I haven't heard from Bob yet, but the same thing happened to Eric. So in Eric's case, this is the initial filing, and there it is, Hamilton Eric C. All right. Fictitious name to be registered, Eric Carter Hamilton. They let him do that. There's the address, but they wanted to put the owner with a C. In a lot of mail you see, it only has a middle initial. In fact, if you ever look at judges and priests and people like that, they always use their middle initial. They never put their middle name. But that isn't necessarily your true name unless we find out when we look inside the envelope that it is. Because your true name is your first name, or is your surname coupled with your given name. Right? So to me, my given name was Robert Allen. Whether you call that a middle name or not, it doesn't matter. When I hear it, it's just Robert Allen. That's a word. And MI does not stand for middle initial. Because on these forms, when you're filling out, it says M.I. in parentheses. It's not a legal abbreviation for middle initial. And you could do this online, so this is all electronic. So that was the first one. Well, then they corrected it. Because he called them up and said the same thing. Now, he only had to call them and tell them. And basically he told the whoever answered the phone the same way, that's not the way I filled the form out. Right? And there's a jurat down there that says I'm testifying it's true and correct copy or whatever. Well, it's Hamilton Eric Carter. And so they did change it. And so now it shows online that it's been changed. Let's see. What is this? What was this one? Oh, okay. So when he got a copy, a certified true copy, right? But this true copy here still has the old name on it. Now, it has been changed to show it with the full name. But this one doesn't have a certificate on it yet. Right? It doesn't have one of these. In fact, the funny thing is there's no place. Oh, okay. That's all. Looks like it's all part of the stamps they're supposed to put on. So what Eric needs to do is get these seals on this document. in my opinion. He can still go use it the way it is, because on the record now it shows it this way. And you can just tell the judge, they